welcome back to Nails Before Films. It's your favorite disgrace to society, and today I'll be reviewing the continuation of the DC animated movie universe, the Tomorrowverse. In my Superman trailer reaction video, link in the description and top right corner now, I mentioned that the DCAMU is a much better cinematic universe than the DCEU. I genuinely adore the DCAMU and frequently rewatch them. I even bought some of the Blu-rays. Here's Flashpoint Paradox, Suicide Squad How to Pay, and Apocalypse War. Granted, they're not perfect, some of the films are just okay, and a lot of things happen off-screen or were dropped completely. However, despite its flaws, the DCAMU stays coherent and enjoyable. Although not all movies contribute toward the overall story, at least none of them are terrible. The whole DCAMU went out with a bang with Apocalypse War, which utilized many plot points from the previous movies. I like it a lot, even if it does feel a bit pointless with how everything resets in the end, but to me, it's a logical and satisfactory conclusion to the DCAMU. Next came the Tomorrowverse, which I didn't even know was a thing at first. Throughout the first 5 movies, from Superman Man of Tomorrow to Green Lantern Beware My Power, I honestly thought they were standalone films. Imagine my surprise when all of these films were supposed to be related. To be fair, Tomorrowverse isn't all bad, some of the movies are decent. Superman, Justice Society, Batman Long Halloween, and Legion of Superheroes are okay, but that's exactly the problem. Tomorrowverse is mediocre at best, while the DCAMU is mediocre at worst. Even these okay movies have their issues, and overall, the entire Tomorrowverse bores me. All of them have a huge pacing issue. It's really hard to get through them without speeding it up to 1.25 or 1.5. Batman The Long Halloween has the most interesting story in Tomorrowverse, but they try too hard to stretch it into 2 movies, and it's honestly so slow at times. Another problem with the Tomorrowverse is how hard it tries to build up Crisis on Infinite Earths. They sprinkled hints of Crisis all the way back in Justice Society, but instead of making us interested in the big picture, it was just confusing. In Justice Society World War II, there was this guy who mind-controlled Aquaman. I was like, who's this guy? Why can't he mind-control people? We only learned that he was Psycho Pirate in Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 2, which came out 3 years after Justice Society. I had already forgotten about him at that point, so it meant nothing to me. They should have at least name-dropped him by moving Supergirl's "Are you some sort of psycho pirate?" line from Crisis 2 to Justice Society. It would make much more sense since he actually mentioned he was a pirate. It's still a terrible line though. The same thing happened in Legion of Superheroes. The big bad of that movie was Brainiac, who only appeared for a few seconds in Justice Society. We know nothing about the guy, but now he's suddenly a big deal. Heck, they don't even tell us why he attacked Superman in the first place. It's so random. In the DCMU, each movie is pretty self-contained and never confusing. Instead of the movies building up to Apocalypse War, it felt more like Apocalypse War was built around the existing movies, which is why it was a satisfying finale. On the other hand, Tomorrowverse desperately tried to build up Crisis, and the completeness of some movies suffered as a result. For me, Tomorrowverse really started to fall apart when Green Lantern Beware My Power happened. Suddenly, the Justice League is already established and Martian Manhunter, who left in Superman, is back for some reason. Green Arrow and Vixen are also there, and they name-drop Wonder Woman although she hasn't been introduced in the previous movies. Yes, she appeared in Justice Society, but that Wonder Woman is from another Earth. Did the writers forget that? Too much happened in this Green Lantern movie. Hal Jordan is suddenly a bad guy, although we barely know this iteration of him. The whole thing is just so rushed, and the writing is terrible. When a Guardian found John Stewart and died, his only reaction was, "Poor bastard. A freaking alien crashed and burst into flames. How are you not freaking out?" Afterward, when he wandered into the watchtower, all of the heroes just started attacking, even after seeing John make green constructs. That should be a big hint that he was a GL. Not to mention that Martian Manhunter was there. He could have just read John's mind. But no, they found out he was a GL because they saw his uniform under his regular clothes. They also brought back the silly weakness of Green Lantern power not working against yellow stuff, but within 5 minutes, John Stewart could will his ring back to him despite it being inside a yellow box. And why did Hal remain naked after being infected by Parallax? Why is he naked under the GL uniform in the first place? Also, I know why they put Ollie in this movie, but he works terribly when fighting aliens. He looks so stupid shooting arrows while everyone around him has superpowers. But my biggest problem with Beware My Power is definitely the ending. 5 minutes after Parallax wiped the floor with all of the heroes, John Stewart was suddenly capable of taking him on 1v1 and even defeated him. What the heck? You built Hal up to be this overpowered entity that could destroy Oa, but a guy who only had the ring for a couple of days could defeat him? And you will never convince me that Parallax Hal could be killed with a single arrow. I get that it's supposed to be emotional. Green Arrow had to kill his best friend, but it didn't work because the two of them never really interacted. All we got was Green Arrow repeating Hal was his best friend over and over. There really should be a movie before Beware My Power to establish the Justice League and actually show us Hal and Ollie's friendship. The thing is, they could have done that. Just move Crisis Part 1 to before Green Lantern and make Crisis 2 parts. A huge chunk of Part 1 is already flashbacks that fill in the blanks between Batman and Green Lantern. So why not just make a full movie establishing the League? You can even keep the Amazo stuff. Just spend some time building up Brainiac and the Green Lantern movie. But instead, they decided to confuse people first and play catch-up later. Anyway, Legion of Superheroes turned out better than I thought. However, the next movie, Justice League War World, is somehow worse than Green Lantern. It's a nothing movie that only exists to build up Crisis. The only thing that matters are Batman seeing old Barry and Martian Manhunter taking over War World in the end. All of the other stuff, like Wonder Woman in a Western world, Batman with the Warlord, and Superman working as an FBI agent, doesn't matter at all. Seriously, they're just boring fillers. Similar to how stupid Green Arrow looks fighting aliens with arrows, I hate how Batman can just take down white Martians with his bare hands. But to be fair, this issue persists in all media. The comics and DCAMU both do it, so it's not really Tomorrowverse's fault. And it has the same problem of throwing things in there without any explanation. For example, white Martians were never mentioned in the previous movies, but they're suddenly a thing. Honestly, War World does not need to be a full movie. They should have spent some time establishing stuff like white Martians and only kept the black and white story about aliens. You could still have old Barry show up to Batman when he's alone or something, and I was so confused as to which Earth these characters come from. Is this the Wonder Woman they randomly name-dropped in Green Lantern? If so, it's frustrating how the first time we see the main Earth Wonder Woman, but she doesn't even know who she is. And which Martian Manhunter is this one? The one from the main Earth? But why does he act like he doesn't know Superman and Batman? The whole thing is just confusing and boring. Finally, we've arrived at Crisis on Infinity Earth, the 3-part conclusion to DC's animated movie universe, and it's underwhelming to say the least. Part 1 is okay, but as I mentioned before, I would much prefer a big chunk of that movie to be a separate film before Green Lantern. Also, as a Barry Allen fan, I hate how he jokes around in the movie. That's Wally's thing. Barry should be dorky and somewhat socially awkward. Stop trying to make him funny. Anyway, the writing is still pretty terrible in Crisis. Some dialogues are so forced, like Jon Stewart getting angry that Constantine referred to him as Green Lantern and yelled out his name. That dialogue only exists so that Constantine could remember his own name. It's so stupid. And why did Psycho Pirate help them in the end? Shouldn't he help the Anti-Monitor? And what is the Anti-Monitor's deal? If it was just the universe's immune system, why does it hate the Monitor? Anyway, if you hated Apocalypse War for throwing in a lot of characters and killing them off almost immediately, then congrats! Crisis does the same thing on a much bigger scale. Seriously, they brought in so many characters from all these different Earths and expect us to care about them immediately. There is Dr. Light, Mr. Terrific, Blue Beetle, The Question, Nightshade, The Losers, and Commandy, just to name a few. Why is Dr. Light such a bitch in these movies? Like, lady, I get that you're pissed that you're suddenly tasked with saving the multiverse, but why be mean to everyone? You guys are in the same boat. I know a lot of the characters I just mentioned appeared in DC Showcase shorts before, but that's exactly the problem. Not a lot of people watch those shorts, which makes it confusing. Even if they did, like me, I already forgot about them by the time I watched Crisis. And these characters aren't just cameos either. They're somewhat important to the plot. Freaking Nightshade from the Blue Beetle short was the one who brought the miracle machine back from the pocket dimension or something. Blue Beetle also referenced his short, and it turns out Dr. Spectral was actually Psycho Pirate. Look, I love that Blue Beetle short. It's a cute parody of the 60s Spider-Man cartoon with one of my favorite DC characters, Ted Kord. And that's exactly why I don't like the idea of bringing it into Crisis. Why can't that short just be its own thing? Bringing it into Crisis is really unnecessary. They should have just stuck to the characters from the main movies instead of wasting time on cameos. Seriously, the part about the dinosaurs and the losers is so pointless. Instead of using Nightshade, why not just change Vixen's character to someone who has teleportation abilities? It's not like Vixen was important in the previous movies. She really did nothing. In the end, I just stopped caring. I had no idea who was who, so why should I care? I also hate how they have to bring in all of the other animated universes, only to destroy them. Both the Super Friend universe and DCAU show up to get obliterated. Why? Just leave them alone! I get hating on multiverse is popular now, and believe me, I don't like it either. I even think the explanation that the universe can support so many alternate realities is valid. It's a meta observation of how annoying and out of control the multiverse has become. But I don't get why the animated universes can't exist in their own bubbles. And what does this achieve? Those shows and movies still exist in their own universe. It's not like they've actually merged into one monoverse. However, I will say that Crisis Part 3 is a proper send-off for Kevin Conroy and his Batman. I cried so hard when the last thing he said as Batman was, "I care, Joker, about Gotham, about justice, and if it has to end, at least I go out like this, being Batman." It's such a well-written, fitting final line that perfectly conveys what Batman stands for. Kevin Conroy is the Batman, and it's bittersweet to hear him say something like this for the last time. It's a bit disappointing that this didn't happen in a better movie, but nonetheless, it's a great send-off for Kevin Conroy. That's basically my thought on Tomorrowverse. I know they were limited to only 10 movies, but why not pace them better? The whole thing is such a snooze fest, and it's a shame. I'm not a big fan of the style either, it just looks cheap. It could have worked if the animation was good, but sadly it was slow and clunky. The voices are decent, but the dialogue is terrible. I get they probably didn't have a lot of budget, but still, these movies are hard to get through because of how slow and bland they are. According to an interview with one of the producers, they didn't want to do Crisis at first, but were told they had to wrap it up with that, which is probably why the Crisis ending is so rushed and lackluster. I honestly don't know what to expect from DC animated movies now. I'm really not excited about their 2025 lineup. Do we really need a Batman Ninja sequel? Hope you guys like my review and nails. The Superman nail was from my Superman trailer reaction video. I added Wonder Woman, Batman, Green Lantern, and The Flash, all with cat eye backgrounds. They're not great, but I didn't like Tomorrowverse anyway. As always, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, comment, share, do what you want, keep nailing it, and go watch the Blue Beetle short, people. It's honestly really cute and fun.